What's up, everyone? Good evening to you all. This is one of those synchronistic days. I've had a lot of strange synchronicities, coincidences, and interesting things been happening to me lately, and showing me that I'm kind of back on my little track. And I never really left it. We never leave our tracks, but I guess the perfect way to sum up my life at this moment is the kid crying in the background, or screaming, if you heard that. Not just that itself, but the symbol of life being chaotic, a lot going on, and dealing with it the best that I can at this point. And I read something this morning in a book, and they were saying that the first 20 years of life is for knowledge, from 20 to 40 is for family and prospering, and then from 40 to 60 is your spiritual growth. So it was kind of like well, at least I'm not that far behind. I turned 40 this year, and I guess my point there is that I've been working on myself a little too much over the years, when there are a lot of other responsibilities that I need to take care of. And I could sit here and tell you that, self is most important and to work towards your own goals first, but I know that's not true, because in my heart I feel that being selfless, it makes me happy. So without getting too far off the path, I wanted to actually, I had several things I wanted to cover in this video, but I probably won't actually touch on any of them, merely because it's like when I have a thought to process, sometimes by the time I get to make a video, it flows full circle and it makes sense. And I don't really know how to express it anymore. I was holding this statue earlier of Siddhartha, who was, before he became Buddha. This was the Buddha. And I was laughing about the differences kind of between Buddhism and Hinduism. As Buddhism, there's no gods. Buddha himself was not a god, but a lot of people who don't understand Buddhism think that Buddha himself was a god that is worshipped. And it's funny, that's not it at all. Buddhism doesn't require chants, priests, or gods. Nor does it require you be a certain type of person to obtain moksha. Moksha is the state of the end of the cycle of rebirth, life and death. And I've been had a lot of interesting concepts of reincarnation pop up lately in my research. And I was reading this paper earlier about the scientific acceptance of reincarnation, or at least that was the name of the book or the paper. And I wouldn't by any means say it was a scientific acceptance, but it was an explanation of, where science has fallen short in our search for truth. And, I've made videos in the past where I talk about how awesome science is, only because everyone seems to bash science as, it's kind of like religion bashing in a way. Science is not perfect in itself, and no one religion is perfect in itself. All of the different concepts within science are helping us. In other words, religion, we founded science to try to help us explain who we are, but we're using our five senses, which means we're using 3 spatial dimensions, okay? Within those 3 spatial dimensions, we can only have a framework for a certain amount of understanding. If you try to put everything in the world within the context of what we see, hear, taste, feel, without utilizing our intuition, which is that extra key, that 6th sense, then what we're doing is we're negating a feeling and attributing a scientific explanation to a feeling, merely because we don't understand it. It was like radiation before it was discovered. It was there, we just couldn't see it. It could harm you, just couldn't see it. It could help you, we just couldn't see it. It's an energy force. And my belief is that this 6th sense we have, which, there's an argument between, a lot of folks will say, well, intuition is something that is just, maybe it's genetic, but it's something that just humans develop, perhaps. But it's nothing spiritual, or it's nothing that has anything to do with anything more than just survival of the species. And then there's a line of thinking that says intuition is maybe God speaking, or speaking through them, that prophets are, inspired by God. And in the middle is what I believe to be this idea that we are all consistently divinely inspired. There is no you and I. There is us. There's we. There is I. Only I. And when people say that, it becomes a cliche in a way. The whole Namaste, you are I am you thing. People want to explain that and understand it. They don't want to just say it. Because as much as you are I and I am you, if you wrong me, it's obvious that I'm going to want to, I'm going to feel wronged by that. People, in other words, as mystical as we want to be in life, we still have to live this world and live in this reality. And along the way, we're learning that where science falls short is when it tries to explain things that are just unexplainable, like intuition. And the reason why science wants to explain away these things is because we don't have anything within the framework of science to understand these things. Let me put it a different way, because I'm not bashing science. Science is phenomenal. See, I stick up for it and at the same time bash it. And I say, good job, science, for creating these phenomenal things. Good job to scientists and the method for creating a way to understand our world that's not like, just through our own thoughts or what we think is true. Because, and that might fly in the face of what you might think I'm trying to say. If I'm saying, on one hand, well, we need to use our intuition more. But on the other hand, I'm saying, well, we need science because otherwise we'll just go on our intuition. It seems like it's a contradiction. The problem is when we use our intuition as a whole, we come up with different results for what it means to be alive. And these results were encoded in symbolism since ancient times, only they got twisted over time. So in order to decode what happened, we developed science to go, wait a minute, let's get grounded for here. Let's sober up for a minute and figure this out. And now science has reached about the limits of its capacity for explaining who we are as far as what is beyond, because we don't, at least at the moment, have the tools to measure anything outside of ourselves, although we know our hearts have their own electromagnetic fields now and that they interact with each other. So that's showing some sort of a connection between people. And maybe it is a matter of time till science catches up with what we already know, that you and I have a connection. Some of my subscribers and I, like Stray Dog, and we've talked about how we're on the same wavelength, and he'll say something that I'm thinking, or, and the scientific view would be to chalk all this up to coincidence. But then you start doing the math and you see the numbers, the chances are astronomical for many of these coincidences to happen. But science can still say it doesn't mean that they didn't happen. And that's true, and I respect that. And this is why science is good and bad. It keeps us on our toes. It allows us to not wander too far in one direction without being grounded in some reality. But when you get to a point, when you get to that intuition state, there's not a lot that can be said. This would be the state of people who say they just know God, or they understand. They don't need to explain themselves or prove themselves. And this is a good state to be in. I've reached a state where I'm content with who I am and what I think. But for me to just say this is who I am now and move on and just do my life and ignore the millions who are fighting amongst themselves, it's just something I can't do, because I feel this intuition that I need to help my people, and that I want to see others do good, and do great things. And along the lines of reincarnation, while a lot of people don't believe in it, I've actually used everything I can to argue against it. Not because I don't believe it or don't want to believe it, because I'd love to. It's because I need to push out all the doubt from my mind of possibilities of, say, I'm not going to fall for what people are telling me is true, in other words. I'm not going to say, well, okay, you die and you're reborn as another human. Or let's say one guru will say, you may be reincarnated as an insect or a rock. And another one will say, no, we only move up in the chain. Ignore both of them. We don't need gurus. I've come to the point in my life where I realize some people need leaders. There are alphas, there are omegas, and everyone in between. I'm an alpha. I can't help it. And that's not arrogance. That's my realization that I'm too stubborn to be directed by any one particular person. That I've come to the conclusion that I can't find any one human who has experienced life the way I have, therefore none of them can understand where I'm coming from. it doesn't mean that I don't have heroes. In fact, I wanted to mention a hero I didn't mention in one of my older videos. I've made several about, I've mentioned Manly Hall and, Alan Watts, because he's fun and whatnot, but there are a few guys, modern people, who are really telling it as it is. And anyway, I better save that for a completely separate video, because it's a different subject altogether. But anyway, I wanted to just, I guess, cover the base that we know that there's something more to life than just living and dying and getting a job. And when I was younger, I used to think there was a level you reach where you're mature. And it's laughable to think back on that now. Maturity is a state of mind that may be obtained through the child mind better than the adult mind, if you will. Up until age 6 is when they say that a child speaks about his past lives. And this is why back in the reincarnation ring here, I was researching the idea of the Buddha when they searched for the reincarnation. And it's an interesting concept. There was some scientific studies done on reincarnation, and some of these stories, the kids they remember their past lives. They have scars where the wounds were. Very detailed accounts of where they lived, who they had, their children. And it leads one to wonder, what is this energy that's carried on? And my thought is, it goes along in the lines of what I believe Jung called the collective consciousness. It was his only way of explaining the ether, this place where all ideas and things remain. If you've done a lot of things with your life and you've put great things into this world, then that remains within that, and it can be tapped into. That energy is forever there. And I know that sounds crazy to people who don't believe in that type of thing. I do believe in people who have been under trances and spoken prophecies and talked about vague predictions and whatnot. The problem is that there's so many different types of people. We always think that every prophecy and prediction has to do with some large event or some specific famous person, or that every reincarnation is going to be some, great diplomat or leader, but it's often just an average person, and it's difficult to know. If you say that, oh yeah, I was born in some small town by a swamp and I had 3 kids, and you have a kid saying that, you're going to say, yeah, sure, whatever. You're never going to be able to identify who that was, or even try, and a lot of parents won't care. But the reason I mention this is because the data on reincarnation, at least the stories that kids have about their past lives, is worth considering, because at the very least it'll give people hope, a little bit of hope that that their ideas at least are carried on, that who they were and the things and the efforts they put forth will carry on. But we have to be a little humble to realize that maybe our direct lives eventually will come to an end, and we will go back to the one, the all. So I'm learning along with the rest of you. I can't lie to myself anymore. I can't fool myself about anything anymore. Sometimes I wish I could go back to sleep, but I'm really glad that I'm not.